Hi YouTube, if you are watching this video then you have likely clicked the link from my Instagram account. It is Kels Reads Things if you're interested in learning about books and technologies and other things available from a professional point of view in libraries. I wanted to discuss in depth with you today Winterwood by Shea Earnshaw. Now this book was really hyped up, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that it has a witchy dark theme, and witches is really popular at this time in young adult fiction and adult fiction, and it's actually a theme that I personally really enjoy. So that is something that I liked about Winterwood, but in this video I'm going to go a little more in depth than I did in Instagram about things that I liked and that I did not like. First of all, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and as I said earlier, that's a little surprising for me because I typically love books about witches and misunderstood characters and dark themes. However, the big thing that I didn't like necessarily about the book was the characters felt a little two-dimensional to me. There wasn't a whole lot of depth to them. However, at the same time, the main focus of the book was more to do with the plot than character development. So I guess maybe that's just my own personal takeaway. I know a lot of people loved this book, and if you're a person who's interested more so in plot than necessarily depth of characters, I think you'll get a really big kick out of this. Things that I liked about this book included, like I said, the plot. It has a bit of a witchy theme. It has to do with the main character, the main protagonist. Her name is Nora Walker, and she is a legacy of walkers who are witches that live and come from this Winterwood, which is supposed to be this mystic, vengeful, dark, evil woods. And the only time that Nora and her family can go into the woods is during a full moon, when the woods are supposedly asleep. Other characters include miners, people who used to mine the caves, and they would actually leave offerings in the woods, for the woods, to prevent them from being chaotic and cause all kinds of havoc. So that was really interesting. The woods was one of the biggest themes in the book. However, I would have liked to have had a little bit more history about the woods and like why it was necessarily evil. However, the book is only just over 300 pages, so I feel like she couldn't necessarily cover all of that in, that short of pages, and I understand that. It's also, the text isn't very large, so if that gives you any kind of indication about the depthness of, characters or plot itself, it's just not quite there. Something else I wasn't crazy about was that the characters seemed very kind of two-dimensional to me. I liked Nora, the main character. I mean, she was your typical witch, misunderstood, kind of stoic, more introverted, very much a loner. And that's typically something I enjoy reading in fiction. However, we just don't know a whole lot about her other than she doesn't have a lot of self-confidence because all of the witches in her family in her past have what's known as a nightshade. They're all capable of doing something magical that other Walker women can't do. And she has yet to discover what hers is. And she's, I think, 18 in the book? Yeah, 18. So she just seemed a little too dimensional to me, as I said before. There wasn't a whole lot, of depth when it came to Nora. Nor was there a whole lot of depth when it came to the male protagonist, which is Oliver. Most of the story focuses on this plot of a boy from a camp for troubled boys has died. And we don't know if Oliver has something to do with that. So that was really, this book mainly has to do with plot and less about character development, as I said. And I typically gravitate towards books that are more about relationships and people developing and kind of coming into their own. So that might be a little bit of why I wasn't as crazy about this book as I was hoping to be. Another thing I wasn't too excited about was the writing style itself. It seemed really repetitive, and I kind of understand where that comes from because the Winterwood is very mystic and mysterious, and it's kind of like a poetry in of itself, which I understand, but the characters Nora's monologue more or less repeated the same lines over and over again, and it made it almost hard for me to concentrate on the actual story and what was happening. So I wasn't as big of a fan of that specifically. So the way it was written, the pacing was not my favorite. It actually took me almost 3 weeks to finish this book. And like I said, it's a relatively short book with a lot of spacing in between the text. So that just proved to me another thing that I wasn't as crazy about. And also, the story was just a little bit predictable, especially about halfway. I kind of realized, you know, what was going on, why Oliver wasn't exactly reliable. Almost none of the characters are, and even the background characters were pretty two-dimensional. Troubled boys who get drunk a lot and, you know, are violent, but of course they're violent. They're literally in a camp for wayward boys, so to speak. Okay, well that is my slightly more in-depth review of Winterwood. I will say that I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed who Nora eventually becomes. I do wish there was a little more to Oliver's character, and I wish the pacing had been a little bit quicker, but overall it was a good read. I personally don't see myself reading it again. However, I would recommend it to young readers who are interested in witchy themes, unreliable narrators, and mystery, whimsical sort of feels. Alrighty, well that's my review, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know with a comment. Thank you, and have a great day.